And we're live for you yet again on the weekend edition of the Morning Brief on Channels Television. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
Finally, Friday is upon us, September the 20th, 2024. Good morning. This is Lagos. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. I'm sure you're wondering, where's Jeffrey? He's going to make a surprise entry. Well, not for now. Jeffrey's taking some well-deserved rest. But we're here for you with a full package, as always, right here on your perfect day starter. All eyes are in Edo State, Bukola, because tomorrow is D-Day. All of the weeks, months, and years of preparations come down to tomorrow. I can tell you for sure that all of the stakeholders are ready. The politicians were ready 4 years ago, right? So, I mean, that's a given. INEC has been distributing the sensitive materials. We saw that yesterday. Even we are live in Edo State, as you will have seen during the course of the past days. So all appears set for that important election. But we have to talk about the political bit, because that's always been the headache, really, the political bit and the conduct itself. You had an SOS coming out yesterday saying that there were political thugs camped at an INEC office, and then the INEC officials were worried that what are you doing here? This is not where the election is going to take place. And they had said that these people wanted to break in and gain entrance. And that just leaves a very bad taste in the mouth. These people had to put out an SOS calling for the military to come out. So yet again, we want to reiterate that line. Election is not war. You may think it is for the politicians and for their boys. I don't know why they never say girls, though. Is it only boys?
Well, perhaps it's because you find less and less of women in the space of violence as far as the elections are concerned generally. And that's why you find fewer women holding elective and appointive offices, because of, those very concerning hurdles that must be crossed, that it seems to be the exclusive preserve, not necessarily for the men. But we're not talking about the gender part of politics today. Edo is on our minds. And it's important to remind ourselves about how we got here in the first place, so that we can reflect and, see, hopefully, better conduct in the elections. We've seen a falling out and an unresolved dispute between political godfather and political godson. This time, the governor of Edo State and deputy governor of Edo State, which led to the defection of the deputy governor. We've also seen after that, violence, the exchange of gunfire sometime in July in Benin City, the Edo State capital, between what politicians allegedly say is the vigilante, the vigilante, Edo State security vigilante in Benin City, and political thugs. We do not really know if that is true. The police is investigating, but that led to the death of a police officer in that, melee. We've also seen after that, something tantamount to hate speech between political opponents during campaigns. Very unbecoming of politicians who should even do better. And we've also seen the heightened commentary about how this is about zoning and all of that. We hope that all parties involved will be neutral on Election D-Day itself, which is tomorrow. And we'll also, by the way, like to emphasize that the police must also be neutral in this election, especially because one of its own men took the fall. And we hope that that will not become, fodder for the police to be sort of biased and favor one party in this election. We hope that politicians will demonstrate decorum in the electoral process on election day, and ensure that the votes count, and as much as possible we'll see less of litigation post-election. And we encourage, Benin City indigene citizens, indigents of Edo State in totality, to come out and exercise their franchise tomorrow. Look at all of the candidates and make an informed choice such that the next 4 years in Edo State will be rewarding for the people who are really those that matter in this election. So
start time for the election, 8:30 a.m. if you're in Edo State. Absolutely exercise your franchise. INEC has said that, well, 8:30 a.m. is call time. So these are the things we'll be looking to see tomorrow, whether or not 8:30 will be 8:30. I will not see the so-called African timing. But while we pay attention to the coming election, INEC did something quite significant yesterday, Bukola. And I'm sure you saw that about the recall of lawmakers, representatives. And INEC essentially put out a statement saying that people had been asking them to initiate recall of lawmakers. So before we go on in that trajectory, let me just take a step backward and just expound on the fact that it looks like a lot of Nigerians want to recall their lawmakers. So if you're one of them, you might want to raise your hand as you're watching us. So why exactly are you recalling your lawmakers? Is this something we'll start seeing? And I know we've talked about it. If someone is not performing, absolutely that person should be eased out. And there are constitutional provisions for that. So INEC said that people had been reaching out to them saying, we need to recall this lawmaker. We need to recall this person, either in the Senate, in the House of Reps, or what have you, saying that they're not performing well enough. So INEC said, well, there are constitutional provisions for this. We are not the ones meant to initiate the recall. It is meant to be you, the people. So what INEC did was give Nigerians a breakdown of how to actually do this recall. That was what INEC did yesterday. And it was quite interesting, Bukola, to see that first, a lot of Nigerians are not happy with the performance of their lawmakers on the one hand, and they want to go ahead to recall them.
Well, I think we should start by asking Nigerians just how many of them know their lawmakers, the lawmaker representing your constituency in your state and the lawmaker representing your senatorial district. Let's start from there. And then you look at, that area and see just how well that lawmaker has delivered on the promises, the electoral and legislative promises, that should reflect popular will in your locality. That's where we should start from. And then we can put it within historical context and find out if indeed the process of recall is as democratic as it should be, and not that it is the people, a system that is set against the people and in favor of the establishment. And we could as well recall the sometime in a few years ago when a particular lawmaker was going to be recalled, and that process was put to the test. Specifically, it was in Kogi State, where Senator representing, was it Kogi South now, or Kogi Central, I can't recall, Senator Dino Melaye was going to be recalled, but that process didn't quite go through. Yeah. So until it has to be put to test and it is successful, then we can say that the letter and spirit of the law is truly effective.
So just to give you two very important points. First, the petition for recall shall be presented to the chairman of INEC by representatives of the petitioners. That's you, the people, of course. Secondly, the petition shall be signed by more than one half of the persons, that is, at least one person above half registered to vote in the constituency of the member sought to be recalled. So I'm just giving you insights. If that's what you're thinking, these are the guidelines to doing just that. It's not from me, it's from INEC, derived from Nigeria's constitution. So we'll pause on that for a moment. I know interesting days are ahead, but the question is, would any lawmaker be recalled in the coming days? The jury is out there. Bukola, what do we have today?
Just for them to be educated, even if they're not putting the law to test. But we have quite a lot for you today on the program. Of course, we'll be touching on Edo State. Hopefully, a good number of the 2,629,025 registered voters from the 197 wards in 18 local government areas in Edo State will shape tomorrow's governorship election that will also produce the 6th democratically elected governor of Edo State. We'll be getting live updates from our correspondents who are already on ground to cover this off-cycle election.
And it's been a long time coming for our second conversation, which, well, focuses on the health sector. We join the train that is on the mission to raise public awareness and foster collaboration between patients, health workers, policymakers, and healthcare leaders to improve patient safety. That is your safety. So what is this about? What should you now expect when you go to hospital? Should you expect the cranky nurse or, doctor who is overwhelmed? All of these conversations we bring together and take a look at it in the context of the current economic situation in the country. How well is your safety as a patient? How well is it protected? Well, that is a big question we ask today.
And that's not all. It's the weekend edition,
Oh, yes.
after all. So finally, we'll be able to have that conversation with the choir master of the City Choir in Lagos. Yes, we'll be getting a dose of goodness from sweet melodies created by Shalom Matthews City Choir. And we'll get into the choir master's head, really, to find out how they manage a mass of choristers. Some people have an idea.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that, but clearly we have a full package for you. So stay with us right here. All of the important things you need to know, you'll get them. But hashtag CTV Morning Brief is our hand of fellowship to you this morning. So get online if you have something playing out in Edo State that you'd like us to know about. This is crunch time. So we'd like to share with people. Some shared what's playing out in Oredo. And that is what we put out to the world. So if there's anything out there in Edo State that you want us to know about, absolutely send it right our way. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief, or you can just drop it across YouTube or any other social media platform of choice. So, Bukola.
And after this time out, the show will continue unfolding with top stories on the brief, and then we'll kickstart the conversation. Remember, you're the fourth anchor, so we're expecting your messages.
Well, third anchor this time around.
Oh, yeah.
There's a switch right here for you.
Jeffrey is resting, so we'll begin shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back, and top on the brief this morning, we begin in Edo State, Benin City, the capital to be precise, where sensitive materials for the governorship election have been deployed to the 18 local government areas of the state ahead of the election scheduled for tomorrow, September the 21st, 2024. The Commission's resident electoral commissioner, Mr. Anubum Onoha, and the zonal INEC supervisor, Rhonda Gumus, were on ground to collect and distribute the materials at the CBN office in Ring Road area of Benin City to the local government areas.
So far from when we started to the point we are, it's my conviction that everything is still well done. There's nothing to complain about as at the moment. I can tell you that. Of course, you appreciate the fact that the exercise is continuing. We have not run it up. But from where we started to now, if I'm repeating myself, it is to the effect that we have nothing yet to complain about.
In Edo State, still, stakeholders from within and outside the state on Thursday highlighted issues they want the security agencies and INEC to address at a pre-election conference in Benin City, the Edo State capital. At that event, civil society group Yaga Africa raised concerns about areas that are possible violence spots. The police, at another meeting with stakeholders also in Benin City, maintained that it is fully prepared for the election and determined to provide a level playing field for all involved. And away from Edo State, the election now, to other development matters. The Presidential Committee on Livestock Sector Reforms Implementation has submitted its inception report to President Bola Tinubu on Thursday at the State House, Abuja. Addressing journalists shortly after meeting with the president, the chairman of the committee and former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Atahiru Jega, said the committee was able to identify measures on how the Nigerian government can judiciously utilize the livestock industry. The former INEC boss said the committee's position is that it would be counterproductive to immediately stop open grazing as a traditional method of pastoralism, noting that both ranching and open grazing can coexist in the short term until there is enough awareness and adequate infrastructure that will enhance the adoption of full ranching. The committee also recommended the adoption of technologies in livestock production in Nigeria. According to Professor Jega, a detailed guidance on the operations of the newly created Federal Ministry of Livestock that was announced by President Tinubu recently has been provided in the report. The report of the committee is expected to be made public very soon with a view to getting more input from the public. President Tinubu had in July inaugurated the Presidential Committee on Implementation of Livestock Reforms to address obstacles to agricultural productivity and open up new opportunities which benefit farmers, herders, processors, and distributors in the livestock farming value chain.
In this report, we were able to address 12 terms of reference that were given to us as a committee, and we were able to develop 22 clear objectives of what the reform effort in the livestock sector should entail. And we've been able to make very specific recommendations. We have made recommendations having understood what the challenges are in terms of, first and foremost, you have to find ways and the means of ensuring that you create opportunities that will ensure for the traditional herders, until you are able to win them away from that, that you can provide water points, you can provide feeds, and you can encourage them to settle in locations where throughout the year they could have feeds and they could have water. You cannot wake up tomorrow and all you have is ranching, because you already have quite a large chunk of the population in traditional pastoral activities. What do you do with them? You know, so it's not an either or. Any solution that has to be developed for now has to be a combination of both. While we are promoting the long-term objective is that we now have intensive livestock production. That is a long-term objective.
The federal government has commenced the dredging and desilting of the Ogun River downstream between Isheri in Ogun State and Ikorodu in Lagos State to check the perennial flooding which has continued to devastate lives and property in communities around the river. The managing director and chief executive of the Ogun-Osun River Basin Development Authority, Mr. Adedeji Ashiru, during the signing off of the Memorandum of Understanding for the project at the Ikorodu end of the river downstream, said this has become imperative in view of the expected downpour in the states, which could lead to flooding. The 10-kilometer dredging project from the Ikorodu end to Isheri in Ogun State is expected to be carried out in phases. And we'll return to the north now. Residents of Kogi State have been asked to avail the police with credible information that will enable them perform their duty of protecting lives and property instead of posting frivolous things on social media that would complicate issues. The Kogi State Police Commissioner, Bertrand Onoha, stated this at the command headquarters in Lokoja, the capital, while reacting to the killing of a traditional ruler, Chief Job Shagari, at Itama community in Dekina local government area of the state. He explained that those responsible for the killing of the monarch will be brought to justice. And return to the south, where there's a widespread anxiety reported among residents of Ayetoro community in Yaba local government council development area. That they may soon find themselves without shelter as the state government threatens to demolish their homes. According to the residents, the threat is considered a measure by the state government to forcefully evict them after the Okobaba plank market was set ablaze, an incident believed to have been deliberately carried out by the Lagos Task Force to dislodge the traders. And we head to the courts now. The Court of Appeal Abuja has granted the request of the federal government and former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen, to settle out of court in an appeal challenging his removal as CJN. The decision of the court followed information that the two parties have intensified efforts to reach an amicable settlement of all issues in dispute. Former President Muhammadu Buhari had in 2019 removed Onnoghen as Chief Justice of Nigeria during the pendency of a charge against him at the Code of Conduct Tribunal. At the day's proceedings, lead counsel to the former CGN, Ogu Onoja, informed the court that the two parties are already having discussions on a peaceful resolution of the dispute. President Bola Tinubu will not attend the 79th United Nations General Assembly session in New York this year. The president has directed Vice President Kashim Shettima to lead Nigeria's delegation. This is contained in a statement issued by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Ononuga. The statement notes that President Tinubu, who returned to the country last Sunday after his trip to China and the United Kingdom, wants to focus on domestic issues and address some of the country's challenges, especially after the recent devastating floods. At the 79th UNGA, Vice President Shettima will deliver Nigeria's national statement to the General Assembly, attend important sideline events, and hold bilateral meetings. And the federal government is set to receive a new loan totaling $1.5 billion from the World Bank. According to the Washington-based Financial Institutions Project List, the loan request is set to be approved and disbursed on September the 26th. The loan, which is expected to target projects in crucial sectors such as healthcare, agriculture and infrastructure, will be distributed through 3 major developmental projects aimed at improving the country's sustainable development and economic stability. Meanwhile, a financial statement published by the World Bank revealed that Nigeria is the largest debtor to the World Bank's International Development Association as of June the 30th, 2024. Outside our shores now, Hezbollah leader says exploding device attacks crossed all red lines, saying the bomb attacks using thousands of Lebanese armed groups, pagers and radios crossed all red lines, while also accusing Israel of what he said represented a declaration of war. In a much-anticipated speech, Hassan Nasrallah acknowledged Hezbollah had suffered an unprecedented blow, but he vowed he would continue fighting and inflict a just punishment. Israel has not said it was behind the blasts on Tuesday and Wednesday, which Lebanese authorities said killed 37 people and wounded 3,000 as Nasrallah spoke. Israeli warplanes caused sonic booms over Beirut, scaring an already exhausted population, and others struck targets in southern Lebanon. The Israeli military said it was operating to degrade Hezbollah. And in sports, the federal government has declared the 8th edition of the National Youth Games closed. The Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Eno, who was represented by Director in the Ministry, Patrick Ukeke, commended Delta State for hosting the National Youth Games. And the minister added that sports remains a veritable tool to empowering the youth and creating a healthy and productive country. The Delta State Governor, Mr. Sheriff Oborevori, who was also represented by his deputy, Monday Onyeme, reaffirmed the government's commitment to staging the competition next year. Officers of the Nigeria Police lowered the game's flags, signaling the end of the competition. And that's it on some of the top stories that will shape the conversation today. But it's time now to review your thoughts on these major issues. Kayode joins me now for that review. Hello again, Kayode.
Hi, Bukola. We're starting off with money this morning, and I think majority of Nigerians, people generally love any talk about money, but this is about the minimum wage, and the federal government has come out to reiterate that private employers paying below 70,000 naira risk jail. Backstory. Now, the spokesperson for the ministry says this is law, right? And if you break the law, you are going to hear the music of sorts. That's just paraphrasing what he said. So what are Nigerians saying about this, particularly because this is a very tricky time and people need all of the money they can get, but businesses are also going through a lot. So the first user, the Wealth Arena, and I think this is just right that we start with someone who has wealth in his username, says rather than threaten imprisonment, the federal government should provide financial assistance or tax incentives to small businesses and startups, and also allow for gradual implementation to allow businesses adjust. The user says this will strike a balance between protecting workers' rights and promoting economic sustainability.
Sounds like sound counsel from someone who knows about financing. But this next one is from Avocado, who says this 70K is not realistic in every private sector. Some SMEs can't afford to keep up with that amount. Some of them don't even have a monthly turnover of that 70K to start with.
So the law says that if you employ below 25 people, then you don't need to pay a 70,000 naira minimum wage or a minimum wage in general. That particular bit, I don't think it was amended. It wasn't amended in the new Minimum Wage Act. So that still remains. If you're employing below 25, and I imagine that's for the small businesses then and medium, you shouldn't or you don't have to pay minimum wage, doesn't mean you should now
You're still in the clear.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you should now pay slave wage. If I can pay above that, right? I mean, it's just a minimum wage. So
well, depending on what your turnover is, but Kaide, we must reckon current realities. You know, specifically talking about the increase in the pump price of petrol from 560 or 80 naira, as the case may be in NNPC filling stations, to 865 and then 950.
Or 1,000 plus in other places.
Yeah, in other places. That's really challenging, even for major employers. Yes. How much more those who are in the real sector? So
it's a very interesting debate. Workers want more. Employers say, well, we don't have a lot more to give. So something has to give clearly. And people are saying government should come in. This next user, Chris Ejiofor, is questioning the federal government, saying, are you even paying the minimum wage just yet? So if you are a civil servant or you work for the federal government or you know someone who works for the federal government, let us know, have you gotten your 70,000 naira minimum wage? Don't forget, it takes effect from May. So that's going to be May, June,
July, August, September.
I'm sorry I'm doing this. I'm not counting your money for you. But let us know if you've gotten that consequential increase. But that's what
and let us know
asking.
If you're in other states as well, if the state governors have begun implementing the new minimum wage.
Very important.
Yeah, very important.
So it's not just federal, states as well. But this user focuses on the federal government.
Yeah.
Next one, Bukola.
Next one is from Safety Cabal, who says the permanent secretary should first start to arrest all government agencies. I knew this was coming. I knew it was somewhere there, including state governments, agencies who are paying less than 70K, when you can now enforce it at the private sector's level.
So those in support say aye. Okay. The ones who
Did somebody say aye on their behalf here?
So let's move on to another conversation, and this concerns flooding. Not in Borno State, not in Kaduna. This one is in Kwara, a community in Kwara State, displacing residents and destroying property. So let's just show you what played out in that community in Kwara, so you get a sense of just what flooding can do. And I mean, no state, no community is exempt from that one. So there you go. From Borno State. This could actually be Borno State, but we understand that this is touching other states, and NISA has given an alert to other states that they will also be experiencing some sort of water release. Ugo has a first comment saying, my condolences to them. The government should try to allocate money distributed by other states due to flooding to the appropriate persons and not embezzle them.
Stark reality there. And we also commiserate with the victims there. And this next one is from former Showboy, who says, the same way Maiduguri, Borno State received massive funding, let it be reciprocated in Kwara State.
There you go.
Hope that people will go to their spirited Nigerians will come to their rescue as well.
So time is of the essence. Everybody has to be on guard on this one. But let's turn our attention to another matter. Still in Kwara State, there's a video of a taxi driver who was lamenting, really saying that he earns 20,000 naira daily, but when he buys petrol, he spends 17,000 naira. So give or take, that's just 3,000 naira left for him to take home. So is that take home taking him home? So a lot of people came together or came on this topic to just speak about their own situation as well. And Jasper Aniet has a first comment saying that this is happening to millions of households in Nigeria. But he's able to talk to the media for this. There are plenty who cannot come out because they've been long forgotten. So this user essentially spreads it around.
Oh, a sad one there. Then this next one is from, I believe, Humphrey or Bajiri, who says, this is really unfortunate. The things are actually avoidable, but here we allow it to happen, and the next thing is to share rice.
Alrighty. So while that is ongoing, we come to Lagos. Lagos government has taken some decisive action over that Idera market in Oshodi by sealing that popular market. And a lot of people are saying, well, I think the government did right on this one. And I think markets are a major part of our economic reality. So there's always that dilemma. Do we shut it down and then shut people's livelihoods, or should we seal it and then ensure that the right things are done? But Lagos State government has taken the hard decision on this one. I do hope that we can also look into people who are always dragging you when you go to market. Come to my shop. Man, woman, they drag you, and it's harassment, particularly for women. So I think it's something we must look into as well. So Lagos State government, kudos, but let's look into that one. This user, Manik, there you see the ceiling of the Dera market, but Manik says they've certainly broken regulations. When you go to these markets, you would wish you had the power to shut them down for a while so they can clean up. It's always a mess.
This next one is from, okay, we're totally out of time now, but we get your comments. Those of you who commented on other issues, including gunshots reported as EFCC officials attempted to arrest ex-Kogi Governor, Mr. Yahya Bello. Perhaps we'll get the time to respond to cover all of your comments later on the program, but thank you for sharing them. And right about now, we'll start with the very first leg of our conversation, which will be focusing on your health. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Just before we talk about the coming Edo State election, the big one, also about your health. It's absolutely important to pay attention to our health because, who knows, something might happen. And this morning, we're touching on that important subject of patient safety. The world came together to talk about it, and we want to ensure that we're not left behind here in Nigeria. At one point or the other, you'll have been a patient. Maybe when you were born, you were some sort of patient, or from time to time when you seek medical attention. So this is a conversation that covers everybody. And this morning, we're joined by three individuals who will help us get a sense to where Nigerians are, the challenges we're facing, and how to ensure that next time you go to the hospital, you get the very best attention from all of the health workers. Mr. Pascal Achunine, the very first guest who joins us right here in our Lagos studio, is Executive Director, Health Emergency International, and a social entrepreneur. And joining us virtually is Professor Sonny Semede, who's lead consultant to the Federal Ministry of Health on Patient Safety Policy Development, a visiting professor of Patient Safety and Care Quality Leadership, Federal University of Health Sciences, Otokpo, Nigeria, and Specialist Advisor, Care Quality Commission, England. Also joining us virtually is Professor Aminu Mohammed, who's the President, Medical and Dental Council Association of Nigeria, and Professor of Surgery, Bayero University, Kano. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, this is a very important conversation, but conversations like this happen in a context. There's a global context, and that's why the world came together through the World Health Organization to talk about this. But there's the Nigerian context as well. So I want us to begin from that. Now, the shadow over everything in Nigeria today is the economic situation, the cost of doing business, the cost of living, which now goes to the cost of healthcare. So I'd like to begin with you, Mr. Achunine, because there's a tendency to speak about these things in isolation, when in fact, they happen in the context. So speak to us, because we've heard hospitals, care providers speak about how the economic situation is impacting health delivery, from the power situation, the cost of procuring medications, equipment, and the rest. So how is this impacting generally on healthcare delivery, and then specifically on patient safety? Is this harming it, and to what extent? Let's start from there.
Thank you. First, my heart goes out to residents and people in Borno and Kwara and other places affected by the flooding. Obviously, it has health implications, it has safety implications. As at 2022, when the National Bureau of Statistics published that 133 million Nigerians live in multidimensional poverty, one of the key indices affected was health. And as a country, from the national government to the subnational governments, in terms of attention required, we are already lagging behind budgetary allocation, infrastructural deployment, and even the manpower plus technology that you see in even smaller countries across the world. So the economic situation is impacting negatively, starting from the drivers of it, the health professionals, and that is reflected in the number of people who have left the country, the Jacqua syndrome. And it means that the few who are left behind or left here, most of them are overstretched. Go to any public health facility, you see a crowd, you may think that there is a football match or a party program going on, because some people get there at 4, 5 a.m. to enable them access care. And we have few personnel that are now attending to this. And you must also put this side by side with the grassroots public facility, which is the primary health care centers, where medical conditions that are non-chronic, ordinary, should be attended to. Most of them are less than 20% of them are functional. And then related to it is the cost of transportation. Let's look at another important indicator that is going to impact on safety. The cost of transporting from where you live to the nearest public facility. People that could afford it 2-3 years ago cannot do that now. So many people stay at home, watch their health degenerate. And the tragedy is that the cases that typically could be treated are end to end in 3-5 days. They get out of hand. When they are now rushed to the facility, they are in a very messy state. So that is one key area. And then, of course, you know about this power. In the last 8 to 9 months, one of the facilities I visited while in the East in the last week, they were given a bill of about 5 million. They negotiated to 1.5, and the agencies, the authority, the power holding, the energy supplier, let me put it, they could no longer, at the point they cut them off. And so as much as that facility is concerned, they will not operate at up to 20% capacity.
So clearly, this is impacting adversely on patient safety.
Sadly, that's the reality.
Because, and I'll take this to Professor Semede, if you look at what the goal for this year is, they essentially say, get it right, make it safe, improving diagnosis for patient safety. So the slogan is, get it right, make it safe. But in the context that Mr. Chinene just painted, and which we all know about, what a lot of people are used to is, a lot of times they go to the hospitals and what they find is cranky healthcare workers. The nurses seem not to be happy. Now we have great nurses, I must say that. But a lot of people go to maybe public healthcare service providers and even private, and it looks like they don't want you to be there. They're cranky with you. You ask for something, you don't get the help you need. There's a JAPA challenge as well. So in that same context, Nigeria is or has developed our policy on patient safety. So how do these things match really? You have a bird's eye view of the situation. So how challenged is patient safety really in the context of all of this from where you sit and that policy which we have developed?
Thank you very much, Kayode, and thank you to Bukola. And good morning, our viewers. I am Sonny Semede. I am joining you incidentally from Benin City, Edo State, and I bring a message of unity. A unity between all the politicians. One thing they agree on today, even though we have a massively divided electorate, I can tell you that Oludi Akpakomiza and Aswe Floret, we all agree on one thing. There's a need to come in and work as a team. Kayode, you did talk about the theme of this year's World Patient Safety Day, which is improving diagnosis for patient safety, get it right, make it safe. But what you did not add was it's a team effort. A team effort that is clinicians need to work with their peers, work with pharmacists, work with those in the labs, work with the patient, their families, the community, work with policymakers and everyone. So the solution is teamwork. And people will say, what has the family got to do with making the right diagnosis of appendicitis or a cause of fever? People self-medicate. Not all fevers are typhoid or malaria. When you have a member of your family who is complaining of fever, advise them to have a checkup. And when they go for their checkup, if the doctor is not sure, the doctor needs to send them for a test after doing the physical examination and make sure they get it right. In order to get it right, the lab needs to be well equipped. And this is why we need the policymakers, we need the politicians. And this is why the World Patient Safety Day was endorsed by the 72nd World Health Assembly to bring patient safety issues to the fore and make sure that everyone is engaged with this. We need the politicians, policymakers, we need the traditional leaders all coming in to show solidarity. And I'm pleased that it is gradually beginning to happen. The first time we had a go at this was as far back as 2002. That was the 18th resolution at the 55th World Health Assembly, which asked countries to consider the issue of patient safety. So it was just, think about it. And 17 years later, it was found that virtually nothing has been done in several countries. So a plan was put in place. And I'm pleased to say that the federal government of Nigeria, through the Federal Ministry of Health, has engaged with this global initiative, engaged since 2019 when the theme was Speak Up for Patient Safety. Okay, bringing patients from the margins of care right to the center and the heart of care. And during the COVID, you can remember our theme was health worker safety, a priority for patient safety. And then we advocated for PPEs, for sanitizers, for water in the hospitals. We advocated for ventilators. And most importantly, we asked for attention to be paid to the well-being, mental health and well-being of our healthcare workers. And so a lot of progress was made there, and what we're calling for this time is that the progress that has been made should not be temporary issue. They should continue because the problems have not gone away. In 2021, we focused on maternal mortality, where we in Patient Safety Africa have developed a little tool with which you can fast track a patient from the rural area to the referral center where there's ICU for actively deteriorating severe cases like preeclampsia, eclampsia. And in 2022, it was talking about look-alike, sound-alike medications, how to reduce the incidence of medication errors. And last year, again, we talked about raising the voices of patients for patient safety, developing a patient safety charter, which we did at the World Health Organization level. Again, I'm pleased to say that the Patient Bill of Rights in Nigeria 2018 contributed to that global initiative. And right here, right now, this year, it is diagnostic safety. It's a teamwork. Right. We need all persons to be a part of it, to take care of our patients. The healthcare workers need to be helped to take care of their patients. And that's why the issues in Kaduna right now is a very serious issue. There's no place for banditry in our hospitals. We demand that they be freed. Our hearts are with our colleagues in Borno State as well as they battle with the issue of floods.
All right, Professor Semede, thank you for that all-encompassing commentary on the progress made with international engagement on patient safety, home and abroad. I'm going to come to you on the Bill of Rights for Patients later on, but let me go to Professor Aminu now, who is from the Medical and Dental Council Association of Nigeria. I'd like you to speak to punishment for erring medical staff. And, there are quite a number of stories out there of wrong diagnoses, patients who talk about, operating equipment left in their wombs, left in their bodies, and as a result, they've begun to experience paralysis, or they're unable to use their limbs correctly anymore. And reports out there to the effect that punishment for erring medical staff are few and far between, that they get away with a lot of it. What perhaps is in the patient safety law in Nigeria that patients who have similar complaints can invoke such that they can get justice and not be have to live with being permanently maimed for life?
Thank you very much, Bukola. I want to make a slight correction on the organization I represent. I'm the president of Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria. This is the association of all specialist doctors in the country. On your question, diagnosis is a process. And just like the way Professor Soni mentioned is that it is a teamwork and it is a process. It is a process that involves a detailed history taking, thorough physical examinations, and relevant investigations. And all this have a lot to do with the adequacy of the number of staff and also the teamwork as mentioned. Sometimes you find out that health workers do not work in isolation. That is why we always advocate for teamwork. As regards to medical negligence, you find out that the system sometimes creates that opportunity when there are inadequate numbers, and you find a lot of charlatans and quacks engaging into procedures and processes that are beyond their knowledge, that is beyond their qualifications, and beyond what even the law advice allowed them to do. You find out that in some situations, misdiagnosis or errors in treatment are to do with the system itself. Systemic failure sometimes is also the issue. When you are not properly equipped, when you are overworked, followed with a lot of burns out, instead of you, for example, if you take the ratio of doctors to patients in Nigeria, it's expected that as a standard, 1:600, but you'll find out that what we have now in Nigeria is 1:10,000. In a system where you need to allot about 20-30 minutes to see a patient, in about, let's say, 5-hour walk, you are supposed to see at least maybe 10 to 15, but you are to see about 25, 30, and sometimes even 40 by one doctor. So you can see that the system is also an issue. We are making a lot of efforts in terms of the training of and equipping of our medical students to become proper doctors, and also the postgraduate medical training to ensure that we have adequate training and well equipped to take care of highly complex medical and surgical diagnosis and management. Right. So in this situation, you find out that our doctors, when they get to appropriate environment, they do much better because facilities and the enabling environments are there. Those that are within the country, we are making a lot of effort. Sometimes you make a diagnosis based on a lot of experiences because the diagnostic facilities are quite low in number, and also the affordability.
Professor Aminu,
you can recommend. Yes.
Pardon me. Are you saying that the shortfall and the fact that medical staff are being overwhelmed is an excuse for medical negligence? And to ask more specifically, how many erring medical officers have been served punitive action in the last 1 year?
In Nigeria, you find out that it is only the medical profession that are erring and publicly investigating, and in some situation convicting their own members. The council is making a lot of effort to sanitize that. But what people need to understand is that the council does not go looking for this medical negligence or misdiagnosis or issues to do with malpractice. The members of the public need to also report to the council. And once it is reported, you find out that there are thorough investigations, and these investigations are done in public. And you are aware that a lot of people have been deregistered, a lot of people have been suspended from practice, and a lot that doesn't have anything to answer have also been acquitted and discharged. So the Medical Council Disciplinary Committee, which is the arm responsible for this, are also doing a lot of this. And public can testify that it is the only profession that tries its own publicly, so that people will also are judged by themselves.
All right. So I want us to bridge the gap. There's a tendency for us to speak from where we sit naturally, but also for the people who are watching who have real experiences when they go to the hospitals. I mean, imagine a mother who was having a baby, for example, and during the birth experience, she was told to push, and this is a real example. Was told to push, keep pushing, by the doctor there, without knowing that the umbilical cord was tied around the baby's neck, and the woman kept pushing. So both the mother and the baby were exhausted. The child lost oxygen for some time, and you can imagine years after, the child, the parents, the family still living with that reality of what happened then, the child having developmental issues. And I think that's why Bukola was reiterating that point about what then happens next. And these are examples that are scattered across the board. So I want us to speak to how to fix that challenge, because there's the Nigerian context. So let me come back to Mr. Chinene, because you also work across different sectors, the ecosystem of healthcare in Nigeria. So what have you found to be the major challenge? Because it's one thing to try to proffer solution, talk about patient safety, but we also need to know what the real problem is. So as much as we want to punish, we're also ensuring that we're giving them enough before the punishment comes, and say, well, to whom much is given, much is expected. So what have you found to be the key challenge of the healthcare sector in Nigeria that we keep seeing all these issues?
So I want to reiterate that most of the things about patient safety in the first place, some of them stipulated by other guests, I call it a journey. But there are gaps as used. How do we bridge the gaps that connect with the now? Let me give you an example. One of the pediatric facilities, public facilities here, do not have 24-hour light. And there are neonatal ward where we have incubators with preterm baby, children born preterm. They introduce what is called kangaroo mother care. So at a point in the night, 8 p.m. or so, the light goes off. They bring a relative of the baby to come and nurse till the next morning, and a lot of them lost our lives. A lot of lives are lost in the process. Our organization, Health Emergency Initiative, will be working with this facility, and typically we pay hospital bills of indigent patients and accident victims the first 24 hours. So we saw that this was leading to avoidable deaths. We reached out to one of our partners that is into solar energy, and they installed 5 kVA solar in that facility. That guarantees that there will be 24-hour light in that critical unit of the facility. Imagine we had that the neonatal wards of various facilities having uninterrupted power. It means that when we talk about patient safety, including that baby that is born preterm, he could be a president, he could be a professor any day tomorrow, that baby has that safety through that process. And interestingly, the cost of deploying that, because you may not have for the entire facility, but the critical unit was not huge. So that can be that playbook. Then let's go to the road traffic accident victims. I'm sure you are aware that the publication, it was even relayed by your station in 2018, December 13, that road traffic accident is the biggest killer of young people in Nigeria, people between 10 and 35 years. Yeah. Right? Most of our organization had to sign an MOU with the likes of FRSC, National Orthopedic Ibobi, FMC Butemeter, and other entities that are involved in emergency response. The reason was the first 24 hours, over 50% of crash victims die. But there's this culture, I'm sure we know about, no deposit, no treatment, or no bed space. Why are they doing that? Because there is no one that provides initial deposit for them to access care. We have over 72% survival rate in the cases that these facilities brought into our ecosystem, because there is an organization that is standing as next of kin at that moment to pay. So when we talk about, I've had instances where a road safety personnel went to several facilities, and you're talking about patient care now, patient safety, and they said no bed space, even for an agency like the Federal Road Safety.
So at the heart of it basically is funding. We need to start thinking of...
And it's attitudinal, and then when there's need for collaboration. So government cannot fix this alone. Private sector, like the case at that pediatric facility, was a PPP. Social sector, as we represent, a private sector entity, and then they got...
Let me pause you for a moment, Mr. Chinnan. Pardon me, we're due for a break, a very important break. But when we return, we're going to talk about how to now be more creative and deliberate, such that the policy we have, all those documents we have, are brought to fruition because all the other parts are put in place. We'll still have the pros joining us virtually, but we'll be back in a moment to speak about all this important conversation, plus the Edo election. It's crunch time for the people of Edo State. So stay with us right here. The Morning Brief will be back.
Welcome back. And just before break, we're having an all-important conversation on patient safety and the concerns, the factors, that work against that subject matter in our healthcare systems. We also have three gentlemen who have joined us for this conversation. Thank you so much, sir, for holding on. Mr. Chudume. We also have Professor Isedeme and Professor Aminu, who join us via Zoom. We're going to conclude your thoughts on the challenges within the system before I quickly take it to Ms. Professor Isedeme.
So when Prof was speaking about punishment or what the council does when there are incidences, so there's insufficient disclosure. There's the public perception is that there is no consequence management. If a private facility, a public facility, an incident was reported, and it was in the public domain, even if it is in private, just an anonymous communication that came to you, you must demonstrate transparency that this case, you went to the root cause of it, these were the reasons responsible for this. This person had been, after investigation, is considered innocent, acquitted. This person was guilty and has been sanctioned. It boosts public confidence in reporting or escalating cases in the future. And we don't need to go over the same error. It happened in X hospital, it happens again here. But when there is, as a council, as a body, you take those measures, people will confidence in what you do and what you represent will be higher. And I also want to underscore the fact that the media, I'm glad you brought this to the folk. Many people do not know about how the National Health Act of 2014 protects patients' safety. There must be greater level of advocacy for people to know that this, you can go to a doctor and what drug is he giving you? Let me give you a typical example. Most Nigerians think that when you go to a doctor and he prescribes so medication, you should go ahead with it.
And that's where I'm headed with Professor Isedeme. Actually, there's a national policy document on patient safety that has been developed. Professor Isedeme, I'd like you to educate Nigerians on what's contained in that document, specifically about the Patient Bill of Rights. When you go to the hospitals, many times when diagnoses have been done, the medical practitioners do not quite communicate with the patients, not even with the patient's caregiver, who happens to be a family member, and the patients are left in the dark. So what questions should the patients be asking in that regard? And apart from that, when damage has been done in the first place, patients are not even educated on how to go about seeking redress. So what's contained in that document as well about how to seek redress when a treatment has gone south and patients have lost the use of a certain organ of their body?
Thank you very much, Bukola. And thanks, Pascal. Thank you, Professor Aminu, for your contributions here. May I just crave the indulgence of everyone here? These things seems to be, it's a major issue, and there are many people approaching this issue from several angles. And I have to say that majority of them are right. Whatever your experience, nobody should doubt it. But could you just give me some time to explain some very basic things so that we can have a better understanding of the issues of patient safety? Doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and clinicians go to work to try to do a good job. But despite their best effort, we have found out that about 134 million people globally get harmed in care. Up to 2.6 of them die. And we have found that nearly 80% of those cases are preventable. That's my starting point. How do we begin to prevent these things? What are the issues causing these problems? Rather than bouncing on the problems and trying to blame the doctors and the doctors blaming illiteracy. So let me give you a few things, which is the background from where we began to develop the policy. In a system, you see, as far back as 1993, there was a gentleman in Canada, it's called DuPont. He listed a few things he called the dirty dozens of human factors. He listed the reasons why accidents happen in transportation. This was not even in healthcare. And he listed the issues of distraction, he listed the issue of overload, overwork, fatigue, lack of resources, lack of communication, poor training, lack of awareness, poor teamwork. And believe me, these DuPont factors we call human factors, a dirty dozens of human factors, are still very evident. So a lot of the things people will say from different corners, we actually be linked to these factors. The thing is, if you go back to this, how do we begin to deal with these dirty dozens of human accidents, dirty dozens of human factors, which are the roots of accidents? Critically, there are issues, culture. You're talking about blame culture, and you're thinking that this might be a blame-free culture, that doctors are writing their homework and marking it. But we have moved away from that. There's a system, you blame everybody, they hide all the incidents, nobody's learning from them. Blame-free culture, there's no place for it, because when you have, malicious intent, when you have risky behavior, there has to be accountability. And that's why we've come to the point of just culture. In a just culture, there's transparency, there's honesty, there is openness, there's free communication. People are free to document what has happened. And, so there's incidents reporting so that learning, continuous quality improvement can occur. Even where this has been in place, right here in MDCN, in many countries, they have a professional duty of candor to be able to do this. Unfortunately, as Robert Francis in England showed in the Mid-Staffordshire case, the professional duty of candor is insufficient. We need a statutory duty of candor. That's one of the things Patient Safety Africa has been working on. And going back to your question, Bukola, Patient Bill of Rights number 12 says you have a right to complain, but it didn't say more about that. Not only do people have a right to complain, they have a right to have their complaint listened to and acted upon in a timely manner. And that's why we have a duty of candor and a duty of candor process. That's one of the things we have put in this, strategy document. Going back to this strategy, so we understand the issues in healthcare, the issues that lead to various incidents that are reported in the public. So rather than just talking about the incidents, we go to the root of it. What is patient safety after all? Patient safety is a framework of activities that creates behaviors, procedures, protocols, environments, technologies, cultures that consistently reduce incidents of harm. So it is these behaviors, the strategies, the procedures, the protocols that we have looked at. Where has it worked? Which countries has it worked in? How did it work? So we put all these things in this strategy document.
And I think the goal, pardon me, Prof, I think now to push it forward, we now need to break these things down into tangibles for all of the players, and talking about patients, families, and even the healthcare providers, so everybody knows what is demanded of them, at least according to this policy. So everybody is well equipped, and I think that's a lot of work that we have to now do, maybe collaborate and ensure that these things are broken down into digestible bits for people. So everybody is speaking from a place of knowledge, from a place of understanding. But I need to come to Professor Mohammed because of our time now on this. People have asked, yes, it's important to, take punitive actions, but it's also important to ensure that there's a there's the enabling environment. And I know your association is always big on that. As you speak about ethics, you also look to the welfare and all of them. But people have also asked, how much of disclosure is made regarding these punitive measures taken? So everybody's on the same page. We know, okay, I can search a doctor's name, for example, and see the profile of this person has had this case, has done this. A lot of people don't know about that. And they always wonder, how do you want us to trust the system if it is not transparent enough? So is that something being worked on? Can Nigerians easily access the profile of a doctor as you can do in other parts of the world? Just see the profile, see where this person has worked, were there any complaints, what was done, and then it's easy to carry on from there. Prof.
Thank you very much, Kayode. Just like the way I mentioned earlier, these trials and disciplinary committee proceedings are done public, are aired, and people, observers are admitted. All the parties are also engaged. People can now, even now, you can Google and find out that the activities of the committee, of the disciplinary committee, but I think probably you need to engage the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria that will give you more detail on this. The issue of disclosure is part of the ethics of the profession. People can ask questions who consumers who consume what healthcare provides can ask questions and deserve the right to be answered appropriately. And if there are issues, it needs to be communicated in terms of treatment errors or in terms of surgical errors. It needs to be disclosed to the patients or those who are minor to the caregivers. And then if you Google now, you will find out that a lot of the names and time where people are tried and what ruling was made on them, including the registering them from practicing medicine. I'm aware of at least 2 in the last 2 years. And many other suspension for 6 months, 1 year, and so on. And in some situations, some of the things that are reported are actually done by probably quacks and other professionals, and some of them are jailed. From the disciplinary committee, it is sent to the regular court where they can be jailed. You all remember about the popular case in Adama and in some other states where people are jailed for doing procedures that they are not qualified to do. So in terms of openness, in terms of transparency, I think the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria is making a lot of effort to enlighten people. Right. That is the reason why some of these trials are done in public.
You know, this conversation can go on, Professor Mohammed. We've not even talked about the challenge you face. And I think recently you said that just 3 pediatric surgeons are serving Kano State. So there's a very present challenge of JACMA, which is now impacting on the service delivery for healthcare workers. But we have to anchor at this point. It's an ongoing conversation. But we need to turn our attention to some other matters of national importance. But we're glad we've been able to give value to this conversation. And we have to thank you gentlemen for giving us that value. We've been speaking with the president of MD Can, that's the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria, and Professor of Surgery, Bayo University, Kano, Professor Aminu Mohammed. And also lead consultant to the Federal Ministry of Health on Patient Safety Policy Development, Professor Sonny Semede is a visiting professor, special ed advisor. That CV is quite packed. Thank you so much for your time as well. As Mr. Pascal Achunine, who's Executive Director, Health Emergence International and Social Entrepreneur. Thank you for your time on the program, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, viewers.
This conversation clearly continues. Maybe you're watching this from a hospital. If you've got questions or comments, send them in, #CTV Morning Brief. But we'll take a moment now, and when we return, we go over to Benin City, the Edo State capital. I know you have been waiting for this conversation. Stay with us. We'll give you all of the updates in a moment.
Welcome Welcome back to the Morning Brief on Channels Television. And we switch gears now to look at the electoral process ahead of the all-important governorship election in Edo State, which will take place tomorrow, September the 21st. Let's head now over to Benin City, the Edo State capital, to talk with one of our correspondents, Jessica Ologbusere, who's standing by to bring us up to speed with preparations for tomorrow's exercise. Hello, Jessica. Very good to see you. Tell us where exactly you are in Benin City and give us the updates that you have. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. I'm at the Ring Road. At the Ring Road, the central area of Benin City, the Edo State capital. As you and almost everyone knows, the Edo State governorship election is holding tomorrow, Saturday, the 21st of September, 2024. Long awaited, and now it's about 24 hours or so, a day, less than a day to the election. And we know that at this point, campaigns have ceased. Campaigns have come to a close. That ended at 12 a.m. today, or 12 midnight. And we also know at this point that the state government has declared today, Friday, the 20th of September, a work-free day. This is to enable workers who need to go a distance, who need to travel to where they registered to cast their ballots, to be able to prepare and then go there before tomorrow, because there are local governments outside the Benin metropolis where you may need to take, say, hours, that the drive takes hours to get to. So at this point, we know that today is a work-free day, and apart from the government's declaring today a work-free day, it also gave members of the public the assurance that they will be secure, that there is security. That's another assurance that the police gave as well. The police have said that they are working with sister security agencies to ensure that the election is violence-free. They are providing a level playing field for everyone, participants, parties, electorate, everyone alike. But they've also given a list of do's and don'ts, things that are expected to be seen at the polling units and things that are not to be there. Okay, where I am now is the Ring Road area in Edo local government area. Edo State has 18 local government areas, and there's Edo South Senatorial District, which has 7 local government areas, Edo North Senatorial District, 6 local government areas, Edo Central, 5 local government areas. So from Benin City or Edo local government area, people may need to go to these other local government areas to cast their ballots where they are registered for the election. Now, we know that, concerning security, the police have also said they've deployed over 30,000 policemen to cover these areas. They've given the assurance that they are going to be covering land, air, and water. They're going to be securing the borders into the states from different angles. The neighboring states, the borders to the neighboring states are going to be secured as well. So at this point, assurance of security is given both from the state government and the police. From the electoral umpire, we know that yesterday some electoral materials were deployed or distributed to local government areas from the CBN at the Pekpava Road in Benin City, the Edo State capital. So at this point now, preparations seem to be ongoing. It's a work-free day, but at the Ring Road, you can still see people moving around, maybe to put finishing touches to what they need to do today before they go out tomorrow for the elections. So from the different angles, security, INEC preparedness, everyone is saying they are prepared. So it's for the voters to go out tomorrow to vote.
Indeed, Jessica, and it's good to see the hustle and bustle behind you. Looks like everybody is doing last-minute preps. So clearly, Benin City is very much alive today. But we had reports of incidents. In an INEC office in particular, they had said that some political thugs were camped just in front of the office trying to gain entrance. So hearing from the INEC officials and the offices around that we've been able to cover, have there been any incidents that may have heightened the security alertness that you might want to speak to? But basically, the INEC offices, the officials, how are they faring from what you've heard?
Okay, well, not from INEC itself, but the police yesterday did say that it's going to ensure that the INEC offices, both in the headquarters and those in the local government areas, are protected. That is why they have this number of policemen deployed to the state. So the 33,000 policemen are not going to be stationed just at the polling units or ward areas. They're also going to be at the racks. They're going to be at the INEC offices. That is what they say at this point. I cannot confirm at this time whether there's been any incident of thuggery or the like at the INEC offices anywhere.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Quite a busy ambience you have there. It really doesn't look like a public holiday. But thank you for your reporting. And from Jessica, who reported from the Ring Road area, we go to our correspondent, Dare Edo, who is at another location in Benin City, the Edo State capital. Hello, Dari.
Hello, Bukola.
Yes, good to hear from you, Dari. What's your own update? And I'll specifically like to know, Dari, beyond what INEC is saying about preparation, we saw yesterday at the commencement of the collection and deployment of sensitive election materials. But what are you hearing about the arrival of those materials in the local government areas and polling units where they'll be required?
Yeah, thank you very much, Bukola. Again, just like Jessica actually reported, the movement started yesterday from the CBN to the local government. Usually with elections, this is what happens. From the CBN to local governments, 18 local governments in Edo State, and they will start dispatching, moving them towards and to the racks. From what we've gathered so far, it's been a smooth movement because, again, aside what INEC is saying, just like you've asked, the police have also ensured that these materials, sensitive materials, are moving and without any glitch. Okay, so this is what the INEC has said about beavers. Because it is a sensitive material, they said they will be deploying 5,000 beavers to 4,519 polling units across the state. And where I'm standing at the moment, although we're trying to be a little bit careful as well because there are billboards around, and as you know, campaigns have ended yesterday. But I'm standing a few kilometers away from the INEC office where there will be a lot of activities in the coming hours. And what we can see there, you can see the police vehicle parked right in front of that particular premises, and there's going to be a lot more. But the question asked, I think I already asked a question earlier about maybe hoodlums or thugs camping around there. We passed through that place. We didn't see any. But in the course of maybe crossing in the course of the day, we're still going to do a lot more checks, go to more local government, go to INEC offices in the state to at least give you an accurate report as to what is happening in terms of deployment and how the materials are getting to where they're designated to be. One other thing that I can talk to you about, the weather is quite mild, quite, I'm standing there, it's quite cloudy as well. But one thing that you need to know is the excitement of the people. We've been moving from point A to point B. If you're in a cab, the drivers are like willing to talk to you about the election. One thing they are quite maybe not so keen about is the number of deployments, and everywhere you turn to, you see security men, you see vans and sirens blaring everywhere, and they are wondering what is going on. But I can tell you a little bit from experience that it is a staggered election, and there's a whole lot of concentration, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of deployment, and that is the bit in terms of security and deployment, Bukola.
Dari, thank you for that update, because there were reports about the INEC office in Ordo being, there being some sort of siege by political thugs. Glad that that has been resolved. But I know you've been speaking with people. As a journalist, you can't help it. Talking to people, finding out what they look forward to, whether or not they will be a part of that election. It's one thing to be upbeat during the campaign periods, another thing to actually go out to vote. And voter turnout, we've seen, particularly for Edo, and I think it's a general thing, has not been very impressive. You have just a very little percentage of the population deciding for everybody by way of voting. So what have people been telling you? Are they excited to not just, participate in the campaign, the banter and all, but to actually go out to vote tomorrow? Have you gotten that excitement from people and readiness? Okay, we'll try to reconnect with our correspondent, Dari Doe, but that has always been a major challenge when it comes to the election process in Nigeria. Voter turnout. You see lots of people registered for elections, and you try to do the math. If at least 60 people, or 60% rather, of this population, if they come out, then you expect that the election will be at least deemed representative of the desires, the will of the people. But that's not usually the case, Bukola. You find out that most times very few people compared to those who were registered come out. Let me just give you what Edo State has seen in the past few years regarding voter turnout. In 2024, plus 2 million people are registered to vote for that Edo election. 2.6 million people registered to vote for that election. But you see that over time, a very little percentage of people have actually come out to vote. In 2020, 2.2 million people were registered to vote. But I can tell you this, less than 50% actually came out to vote in that particular election. So the big question is, will this year be different? Now, we'll reconnect with our correspondent, Dari Doe, to get a sense of what to expect.
And in 2016, Kayode, in that document provided by Yaga Africa, 1.9 million people registered to vote, but only 32% came out to vote. And, you know, in 2020, there was a decline in that figure. Hopefully, there would be an improvement this time around if we see that the electorate own the process. So these are some of the issues that may define the electoral process tomorrow. Yaga Africa has also been talking about hotspots where, you know, the security agents need to concentrate on and ensure that what we see tomorrow will be peaceful and nothing less than that. And speaking of security, in that, you know, actuality, where we saw our correspondent Dari Doe, we could hear the movement of security operatives. We could hear the sound of their siren blaring just before we lost connection through to Dari Doe. We hope that that will also play out in tomorrow's exercise. So
from Yaga Africa, you can see the hotspots and flashpoint local government areas for that Edo election. And of course, the ones in red, those expected to be the flashpoint. But this is actually would I say an appeal, or just a call to reason, let me say that, an appeal to the people to look at these areas. If you stay in over southwest, over northeast, Oredo, Egora, Ikwabalka, and those places, we're hoping that you can say, no, we will not engage in violence this time around. We will not be a part of the statistics. That's why we're speaking to this. But let's rejoin our correspondent, Dari Doe, who is back with us now. Dari, I was speaking about what you've been able to glean from the people regarding voter turnout. Are they excited to vote tomorrow? Will a lot of them be going out, or they're skeptical? What do you know?
Kayode, it's mixed actually, of course, from what I mentioned earlier. From talking to people at the market, from talking to drivers, they say they're quite excited about this election. They're willing to go, but they also expressed a bit of reservations as well, especially when it comes to the deployment. Sometimes when you have heavy deployment, the people are maybe interpreting it as it could lead to voter intimidation. But by and large, they are quite excited. They are talking about the election. They're only just wondering why this much deployment. The police said they have deployed about 35,000 personnel. And out of that, they're also still going to be assisted by 8,000 other security agencies in this state of, say, 18 local governments, 4,519 polling units. So let's see what's going to play out in the morning. 8:30 polls would open, and usually I would always like to just wait for that, because when you get to an election point, when you get to the polling unit, when you get to the busiest polling unit, sometimes one of the best ways to even measure before the statistics, before the numbers starts coming in, is to see what the turnout look like at the polling unit, at the busiest polling unit, sometimes the racks. But we can only just wait. It's less than 24 hours before polls open in Edo State, Kayode.
Daria, why is your excitement infectious? This is a journalist's joy, covering stories, covering elections. I can literally feel your excitement, and I haven't been on the field with you.
Energy, right?
Exactly, I haven't been on the field with you, Daria. I know that feeling. This is meant to be, the hallmark, the crescendo point for democracy, and we hope, as we said earlier on, seeing those flashpoints, that people will say no to violence. I recall, I think it was in Ekiti, and people were saying, no, we're not collecting money to vote. And there was that phrase that, so we're not voting and you give us money to cook. We're not going to do that anymore. But in general, Daria, I'd like you to also speak to the presence of other stakeholders in this. It's not just security. There's also the civil society present, election observers, the monitors, the international community, and the rest. How much attention is beamed on Edo State? I mean, security is a big one, and we'll have that conversation. But speak to us about the presence of other stakeholders.
Yeah, Kade, you know how it works. So, okay, since we got to this town, there's been a lot of movement, not just security operatives. CSOs are everywhere. They're briefing, they're giving accounts, they're running data. Okay, so let me give you, and I'm pretty much just buttressing what you just mentioned about vote buying. Young Africa also expressed a bit of fear when it comes to vote buying. They said some of the pre-election activities have already been riddled with a lot of inducements, and they're also hoping that tomorrow security operatives would ensure that that doesn't happen. And also the citizen, they're appealing to the citizen to be resilient, to also ensure that they vote without being lured to vote, as the case may be. So there's a very heavy presence of CSOs around as well. In the course of the day, we will be touching base with some of them. They would also still be briefing in the day. Biaga briefed yesterday, reeled out some numbers, the very key numbers that will form the talking point in this election. Just like I've mentioned earlier, 18 local government, we have about 17 to 18 candidates in this election, 4,519 polling units across 192 wards of the state. There are some terrains may be difficult for electoral officers to access, and INEC already said that 5,000 beavers will be deployed, 18,000 ad hoc officials from presiding officers to APO 1, 2, 3, and they would also be having supervising officers across board, just to ensure that the process runs smoothly. Kind of from experience as well, just like you mentioned in Ekiti and maybe in Osun, what happens is that when you have fewer local governments, or where you have places which are quite accessible by either security or INEC officials, you are likely going to have a process where the collation of results and the announcement may be slightly faster than where you have very difficult terrains and a very high number of local governments or very high number of voters, Kayode.
Yes, indeed, Daria, your excitement is truly contagious, but unfortunately we can't join you. We must keep, the fort on this side of the divide. And we hope that some of your contagion will lead you to some great scoops for Channels Television. Our correspondent there, Daria Idowu, reporting from Benin City, the Edo State capital, specifically somewhere close to the INEC office in the capital. Stay safe, Daria, while you do your work. And so we'll take a break now and, of course, wind down, relax a little bit with something equally exciting to talk about. That will be after this break. Join us again.
I'd be lying if I told you I didn't need some sort of relief from all the hustle and bustle of the week, and music does it for me, as well as for millions of people out there. So if you're one of those people, then this is a conversation you don't want to miss right here. We have joining us, the brain behind the 500 City Choir, Shalom Matthew, who's a founder and artistic director, City Choir. He's right here with us in our studio. We had to get him back spite of not being able to have him on Wednesday. Shalom Matthew, good morning.
Hi,
Welcome
good morning.
to Morning Brief.
I'm so excited to be here.
I mean, Bukola was saying that you don't look like a choir master. You look like a rock star. Come on.
Well, thank you so much.
What is inspiration? Because you've made okay, a backstory here. Being a member of a choir growing up was mixed feelings. You know, there was a painful part, right? There's a part where you don't want to go for rehearsals because you don't want anybody to talk down on you. You don't want to go through stress. But right now, you're making it look glamorous. So people see it as something cool. Young people, Gen Zs, now want to be a part of a choir that used to be like an old school thing. Yeah. So first, how were you able to make the choir thing, the ensemble, seem glamorous and cool?
All right. So I've always been a choir boy.
Right.
So I understand what it means to not want to be in the choir. Because,
tell me about that.
So, you know, when you learn under people who are really, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, I just felt like music is a very important tool in our generation, especially to unite people. And I thought about how it is important for us to come together as musicians to build a community where we can, you know, thrive, learn, grow. So I saw that, okay, what are the things that we need to do differently? Don't make rehearsals terrible for people.
Thank you.
Do you get? It's not a do or die affair. Make it beautiful. Let people come. You know, let them enjoy the moment. Let the songs be beautiful. You know, apart from rehearsing, let's have side attractions. Let's have games. Let's have this. Let's you know, something that people can just not want to miss rehearsals. Do you get? Yeah.
And you know, Shalom, relatedly, I wonder what is the driving force for you to choose the behind-the-scene role of a choir master, you know, to appearing on the bright lights and glamour scene of the Nigerian music industry, you know, because a lot of them also emanated from the choir. They were probably keyboardists, they were probably vocalists, they were probably, you know, a member of the choir at some point. But when they broke, they broke away also from the choir. So why are you nurturing the choir vision?
Okay, so I believe in the power of community. You know, it's not everybody that will blow. First and foremost, we just have this vision of building a place where, so one of the visions of the choir is to build a community where people come to learn. So we have different directors, apart from me being the artistic director. We have vocal directors, we have directors in different fields that are there to enable that people grow. So it's not about you. So we're not competing with anybody. We're just trying to complement. So it's not your show, it's our show, it's our thing. So I believe that the only way that we can reach the world faster is coming together and, you know, doing stuff together. So it's not bad to blow. I mean, of course, we have recording artists in the choir, but then you can come, you know, let's do something together. It's better that way.
It's very interesting. We'll also get to the point where we will ask, how do we get into your choir? Do we need to lobby? Since we have you, we'll just hold him until we have to be a part. But that's on the side. You also have a personal story. Because when you said not everybody will blow, I know that this is also coming from your personal story. And I know you've told that story before, how I think you went for a reality show. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I don't know if you got a turn or not, but you took all of that disappointment and you're able to blow right now. Because whether you like it or not, you are blown, even though I don't like that term. So speak to us, your personal story. How did you take that pain, maybe rejection, and you're able to turn this around to help others fulfill their dreams? Because there are people on your choir who are also fulfilling their dreams of wanting to sing and do it on the stage.
Yeah, so apart from the reality TV show, I was supposed to leave the country in 2022 because, you know, when you study music, like everybody wants to go, you know, abroad to do something better. Like let's just further. So I got the admission, I got the scholarship, but it was half. I could not afford it. For I don't know, for a very funny reason, all the people I reached out to that, oh, please support me, I need to leave. Like the plan was to leave. Like I was ready to leave. I had done my auditions. I was ready, but the money was not coming. So I was depressed. 2022 was that year. I was really sad. All my friends had gone. So I said, okay, what am I going to do? Because music in Nigeria is stressful, can be very overwhelming. So I started teaching, voice classes. I get people to train, and it was not just, I was not fulfilled. And last year, July, I just heard God clearly start a community choir.
I'm sorry, so this choir is how old?
It's a year. We started last year,
over
August.
500 people already.
Okay, we started with
Choristers.
200. Yeah, we started with 200 people last year, August 22nd. And it was interesting, actually. I put the video online that I needed like 200 people. Let's start something different. And then the first video we posted had over 1 million views. I was like, what's happening?
Slow down, wait, let's... So this choir, I need to reiterate. I thought this choir was at least 10 years old.
No, we just
or maybe an adolescent, a teenager.
Our 1-year anniversary last month, 22nd.
Tell me something.
Yeah.
And in 1 year, you've had exploits, apparently. So tell us about those exploits.
Well, it's discipline. That's one thing that we don't find in some choir. It's discipline, and there's this group of dedicated people who are there 24/7. They are my friends also, but we'll call them the governing body. They ensure that things work well, like vocals, uniforms, rehearsals. It's a lot of work to see this going. From the fact that we don't even have, a lot of, how do I put it? We don't have a lot of people, who reach out and say, let's support this. But we have some certain people that have seen our videos and be like, oh no, we want to, we have Mr. Shola, we have a lot of people that support, the vision. So it's not easy, yeah.
Clearly, it is not easy. I'm just thinking about how much of work rehearsals would be, because I've been in a small choir of just a few people. I don't know how tough it is coordinating people.
Rehearsal is a whole event, like
right, it's a whole,
day.
because you have at least 500 people,
yes,
and I'm not talking instrumentalists. So I don't even want to think about uniform, because uniform is something that can scatter choir. But I'm curious about how lucrative this is.
Okay.
Right? You do classic music. You do soulful music that will take you away, but music that you have to listen to live most times. I imagine that you do record it and stuff, but a lot of your work is live. And I don't know how much events young people go for where they will readily want to listen to a choir. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Most people just want to plug in, listen to Afrobeat and all of that. So how lucrative has this been for you, and how are you able to creatively do what you're doing so you can sustain at least 500 people?
All right, so with the music aspect, we don't only do classics. We try to, rearrange the songs so that it suits this generation, so that different people can relate. There are times that our content is traditional because we want to reach a particular type of audience. There are times that is this type of language, and there are times that we want to do something really because of course we are young people. So it's we have this vision of reaching different types of people regardless. You cannot be a Gen Z and say you don't enjoy the city choir, because there's something that will just captivate you. Wow, this is amazing. And, sustaining this, I'm a child of God and I believe in, the power of God and his ability to provide, for every of our needs. And he has done that in the past 1 year. But we have people who are there, as supporters, as encourage us that we've been to weddings, we've performed at major events in Lagos, and it's not free. Yeah,
where was this?
Okay, that was just a content, it's a rehearsal.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is rehearsal.
This is rehearsal. This is not even a performance. So we have costume for rehearsals.
Wow.
Without being negative, but are you concerned that some clients would rather, go for a one-man band, which would, be less costlier than going for a city choir of 500 people, where you would have to be charging more, such that, something can go around everybody in the choir?
Yeah, it's cool. Like we've had, people reach out, oh, we just want 10 people. No, the city choir is about.
You have to take us all.
Yeah, it's not all, but you know, there's a number that because if we are coming as the city choir, the idea is the number. When you see the city choir, we're like, oh, look at them, oh my God. Yeah, that's the idea. So, you know, we don't get disappointed if we don't get any, what's it called? Because we are more focused on building and then building something really standard. So if,
Pardon me, we cannot do this conversation. We're about to wind down without you, the choir master. Choir mastering us. So in about a minute, what can we do? What can we are your choristers, so what can you do?
By the way, you have a very beautiful baritone voice.
Tell them. Thank you very much. So what do you think we can do in 60 seconds?
let's try this. Let's do this song. You have rescued my life. You have rescued my life, and I'm never going back. So you have rescued my life. Let me hear.
Let me do treble.
Oh yeah. 1, 2, ready, go everybody. 1, 2, go. You have rescued my life. You have rescued my life. Go on. And I'm never going back. One more time. 1, 2, go. You have rescued my life. Yeah. You have rescued my life. And I'm never going back.
You swapped parts.
Yeah, I came down.
You went high and then you came down.
Do we really have to close the show right now? Come on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We can go on and on, and hopefully one of these days will be live, you know, to get all of that richness, the work that you do at the City Choir. Shalom Matthew, founder, artistic director, City Choir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. We wish you the best and our love.
To the City Choir.
To the City Choir. Send our love to them. Thank you once again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So there you go. We hope we've been able to give you some sort of motivation, inspiration, soulful music for the weekend. It's going to be a long weekend, clearly. But we have to anchor at this point. Channels Television is live in Edo State covering all of that election. So stay with us right here if you want to know everything about the election. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
And don't forget, Sunrise Daily will be up next. But before that, ensure that the singing continues in your hearts and in your homes. We'll be back again on Monday. Thank you so much for watching. I am Bukola Koka.
We'll do this one more time. You